when I was young, I didn't have any official qualifications, and the only qualification I actually managed to get for myself was a license to drive articulated trucks, which are the really big ones. And I got this. And anyway, several years later, I was at a party at a friend's house whose dad was a field marshal. And there was a friend there, and she was saying that they had this group of people that wanted to go to Poland to support Solidarity, and they'd borrowed an enormous truck off British Airways, and they were filling it with supplies, and she was doing it with Lady Salisbury, Molly. And but they hadn't got a driver. And I'd had quite a lot to drink by that stage. I said, "Don't you worry, pet, I'll drive you." And really, that's how it started. And before I knew where I was, you know, I was part of this expeditionary team, which was about as rankly amateur as any team you could possibly imagine. We got the lorry, and we went to Hatfield to have it all loaded up, which took several days. And finally, the day came, which I guess was, I think it was, from memory, it was more or less the beginning of the Falklands War. And the first problem occurred when we discovered that the lorry was too heavy to actually get out of the Hatfield estate, because none of the bridges could stand the weight once it had been loaded. So it all had to be largely unloaded, taken out of the bridge, and then reloaded again. And off we set to Poland without any paperwork of any sort whatsoever. I mean, not one sheet of paper. I mean, lorries, I now understand lorry drivers have this sort of massive manifesto and God knows what else. We had nothing. And astonishingly, we managed to leave the country. And in those days, you know, Germany still had the Iron Curtain. So we went down the corridor to Berlin, where we stayed with the British Army, and ultimately made our way to Poland. And this was the funny bit on the first trip that I remember so clearly, is obviously Molly's husband Robert was quite worried about, you know, what was going on with the Argentinian War. And literally as we hit Warsaw, the Belgrano had sunk. And, you know, feelings could have been a bit high, and Molly was very eager to get a message to him, and there was no way that, you know, we didn't have mobile phones and any of that nonsense then. And so we got hold of the telex machine, which was in the British consulate, and I had a brother-in-law who was, he had an engineering company in the north of England, and sent him a telex, which went much along the lines of, "Can you please ring the Marquis of Salisbury, you know, and tell him that, and inform same that the Lady Salisbury has arrived safely in Warsaw." So he did precisely that, but he rang the pub in Shaftesbury Avenue because he had no idea, and told a rather bemused landlord this message. So, you know, of course, anyway, it was, the whole trip was largely along those lines. But, you know, we went to Lublin and Krakow, and a lot of alcohol was consumed en route, and we stayed with the various Roman Catholic priests, and, you know, and it was good fun. And I mean, there were memorable moments. I think I did about, I mean, it's awful, you get old and you barely remember your name, let alone how many trips you did 30 years ago. But I think I did certainly 3 trips, you know. And I remember Molly was really good fun, you know, an excellent sort of companion. And she enjoyed fast driving, you know, which was good. Because I remember one time, it was just her and I in the articulated lorry, and it was absolutely bulging at the seams with things, and we came across a bridge, and it had something like a 10-ton weight load, and, you know, and we weighed 30 tons, and it was, otherwise it was a 40-kilometre detour, and we just looked at each other, and I knew what she was saying, which was, just put your foot on the floor and let's go and hope for the best, which fortunately we survived that.